season of La Mesita. Remember, you are listening to WLPN LP 105.5 FM, Lumpin Radio Chicago. We are broadcasting live from the comfort of our homes. My name is Evelyn, and I'm here with Jaden. Today we have a special guest. Turbo Sonidero is a music producer and record collector from San Jose, California, who blends rap with cumbia sonidera sound system. He is a co-founder of group Jejeje and also founder of Cumbianet, a collective that promotes new and up-and-coming cumbia producers from Mexico and beyond. Turbo Sonidero kicks up a digital dust with the records of his youth. R&B, soul, doo-wop, and cumbias de antaño, all slurped, bounced, and banged into souped-up, slowed-down Sunday ride. Hello and welcome, Turbo Sonidero. Thank you for joining us today. We're very grateful to speak with you and to have you on our show. Before we get started, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm excited.
How's California treating you?
It's good. The weather's nice over here. It's sunny, and yeah, it's good weather.
For the listeners out there, what is Turbo Sonidero up to these days?
Right now, just working on music, wrapping up a lot of projects that I have. I was traveling a lot since last September, and I went to Europe, I went to Colombia, I went to Mexico like 3 times. And so I traveled from like September to February. So I've been back ever since. I have no plans of traveling. I just want to finish up projects. So yeah, that's all I've been doing, just coming up with new music. I also just released a new album called Lowrider Cumbias. I released it last month on the record label called Discos Rolas. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, it was I just been working on that. That's it. Just work.
We heard that you were working on your album for 10 years.
Well, it wasn't that I was working on it for 10 years. It was more like there were tracks that I was working on for like I would make an edit and then I would play it like at live shows, you know. And I never planned to release it. And when I showed it to the record label Discos Rolas, they liked it so much that they were like, "Oh, we want to put it out." And I was like, well, these are songs. Some of these songs are like 10 years old, and they didn't care. They wanted to put it on vinyl. So, yeah. I was always like, I never knew what I wanted to do with those tracks, and yeah, it was just. I think sometimes being patient, like if you're patient and you have good material, good things will happen.
How and when were you introduced to cumbia?
Since I was a little kid, it was just music that was always played in my family. And I would go back to Puebla a lot, where my dad is from. And yeah, it was everywhere. You would walk down the street, you would hear cumbia. My parents actually met at a cumbia party here in San Jose. They met dancing. The day that I was born, my dad wasn't allowed to go into the hospital, so he went to go dancing to a cumbia party with my aunts. So cumbia has always been a part of my family.
How has cumbia evolved over the decades?
It's evolved in I think cumbia is something that is reflective of what's going on in the culture, and I feel like it's been evolving since with Mexican cumbia, it's been evolving since the 60s. and it evolves with what's going on. Like let's say electronics are introduced, um, or let's say that like the sound. Uh, okay, let me rewind. Um, it just I think it changes as a reflection of the culture, whatever's going on in Mexico, with Mexican cumbia. And for example, in the last 10 years, computers are cheap now for most people to buy them in Mexico. Where back in the days they were expensive, so not everybody had computers or access to a computer. Right now that people have access to them, now there's a younger generation that's able to produce cumbia, and they don't have to form a band. They don't have to invest money on equipment. A lot of them are downloading a music software called like Fruity Loops, and they're making music with that, and they're also incorporating sounds I've been hearing a lot of people incorporating like electronic, like EDM sounds or trap sounds, and that's what I think cumbia is really exciting because it keeps evolving, and yeah, and it stays fresh.
Yeah, like your new album, right? You
Yeah,
rated cumbia and lowrider music, which
exactly.
is really cool and
Uh,
versatile.
thank you.
What does your idea cumbia sound like?
My idea of what cumbia sounds like, to me, it sounds I would say heavy bass. I would even say it's to me from other Latino like music. What I always liked about cumbia, that I felt like it was dark. It was raw. It's music that you could almost say that it's really simple to play. So a lot of the melodies tend to be simple, and just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy to make. I think making like a simple melody that people are gonna like is really hard, and it has to do more with feeling. So there's this saying, in cumbia, like el sabor or el sentimiento, which is the flavor or the sentiment, and like they'll be like ese tiene, like that track has sentimiento mexicano, sentimiento peruano, like what's the feeling of the track, and I think it has to do with like what the composer, where they're from, and that's that. I think coming from hip hop, being a hip hop producer when I was younger, um that's what really got me into cumbia. That a lot of it had to do with feeling. It didn't have to do with like if you were a great musician, if you were the best guitarist, best composer. It had to do with feeling, and yeah, that's what cumbia sounds to me. Cumbia sounds is raw to me. Cumbia is bassy. Cumbia is dark. Um, it's a lot of things.
So my next question is, what is your process when you create this type of music?
Um, I usually like to start with the melody, or if that depends. Sometimes I start with the melody, or sometimes I start with the percussion. Like I like to put a deep bass line with a really with a percussion like a guido and a llamador, which are percussion instruments that you use in cumbia, and yeah, and then I go off of that, and then I make the melody, So it depends. Sometimes the melody comes first, or sometimes I like to go off, the percussion and come up with the melody, and then from there I just build. I start adding layers, transitions and all that, samples. I like to sample too. Yeah.
Okay. As a producer, what are your initial stages of inspiration, or where does your inspiration come from?
My inspiration, I usually like to listen to other types of music. Um, I listen to a lot of cumbia, but sometimes I like to listen to like electronic music or rap music, and try to see what's going on out there. And just if there's a song that really inspires me, um, I'll try to like base my melody off of that feeling that I heard from a track. Um, or sometimes like if I'm feeling something, like if I'm happy or sad or whatnot, I'll be like, oh, well, it's time to make a beat. So I'll sit down and yeah, I'll start going at it. But the process that I do when it comes to making a cumbia track is really is really like making a hip hop track. Like I usually like to do 2 or 4 bars, loop it, start adding stuff like go with the bass, the melody, the percussion, samples, and but to me, like I said, I used to be a hip hop producer, and I try to connect that with cumbia.
We were talking about processes right now, right? And as we mentioned your album, can you explain like the process of making Lowrider and how that came to be?
So that came to be because in Mexico, like I said, right now there's a whole generation of new cumbia producers that are making stuff on Fruity Loops, and what they're doing, they're grabbing old cumbia tracks, especially from Colombia, and making these new tracks, and this style of music is called huepa or cumbia ditada, and so when I first heard that like 10 years ago, I was like, I was really inspired by that, and I was like, well, I wanna make my own web or cumbia ditada, but I also want to incorporate where I'm from, or what I'm from San Jose. I'm from California. Lowrider oldies was something that I grew up listening to, and I was like, well, I want to try that. I think it's really important as a music producer to music producer, artists, or whatnot, to for your work to reflect where you're from. And I think that's where originality comes from. Not trying to sound like somebody else, not trying to copy other people's styles. It's like your style. Everybody has their own style, and I think people should explore that. So that's what I did with that. I was like, cumbia and lowrider oldies. Let me try it out. So yeah. So I remember one of the first tracks I did was Duke of Earl, and I remember just looking for the break, looking for the like the hip hop. I mean, coming from like doing hip hop beats, you sample a lot of soul and R&B. So I was like, well, let me loop it. Let me find the spot where I could loop it and kind of think of it as a hip hop beat. And after that, you start adding, again, the guacharaca, el llamador, el bajo, because hip hop and cumbia, like the rhythms just fit together. If you were to grab like a cumbia rhythm and a hip hop rhythm, and put it together, they just match. So yeah. After that, I started cutting up the tracks, making my own melodies out of the tracks, and yeah, and just the rest is history.
Your album is honestly like really cool because it literally like captures the Chicano culture.
Definitely.
And I feel like that's something that not a lot of people do, because it captures the Chicano culture as well as the Mexican culture in general.
Yeah.
Because of cumbia and the lowriders, the oldies.
For sure.
I personally really like it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's really cool.
Thank you.
So how do you dissect a sample and make it your own?
I use Ableton, so it's a recording software um, that's used more for sampling. And I mean, back in the days when I started sampling, like in the '90s, it was hard because you did it all by ear. You know, you had to like put the sample like either in a sampler, and it would be like a keyboard or like a box. So you would put it in, and then you would like press record, and then you would try to find like the spot where it loops, you know. And sometimes you would get it right, sometimes you wouldn't. With Ableton, on the other hand, you put the sample, you put the track on or the sample into the software, and you just can see like it maps it all out, and it tells you where's all the points and all the points where you could sample, and it'll sound clean. So it makes your job really, it makes it easier, you know. And then from there, I'll put the I'll put the points in each sample where I want to cut it up, and then I'll lay it out on the keyboard. Like you could there's a way to put it on the software, so you could have it all out on a keyboard, and then you could just play it, off of there.
You know how your album incorporates cumbia?
Yeah.
In your perspective and ears, what is the most notable or best cumbia style in Latin America?
Um. Well, I mean, I would have to say cumbia sonidera, and it's not that I'm from Mexico, or I'm trying to be like selective. Oh, my family grew up listening to cumbia sonidera, so I'm gonna choose that. But that I will say, and I'll debate anybody on this to be like cumbia sonidera is the best. The reason is that when cumbia arrives from like Colombia and Peru or whatnot, what the sound systems in Mexico do, they add more bass to it. They make it slower. They add more percussion to it. They add effects. They pretty much like take cumbia, like they'll take an old Colombian cumbia and make it modern, and then to me it just sounds better. I was in Colombia last December, and I remember talking, especially to like the youth, people in the early 20s, and I would be like, so do you guys like cumbia colombiana? And they'll be like, no, we don't like cumbia colombiana, we like cumbia sonidera from Mexico. And I'm like, that a lot of those tracks are from Colombia, right? They're like, yeah, but it sounds better. And the reason is that Colombian cumbia is really fast. The way they do it, they play it really fast. They don't add bass. They don't add effects. But again, when those cumbia tracks arrive to Mexico City, that's what they add, and it's just, I don't know, like a cumbia slowed down just sounds way better, personally. So yeah, some people might not agree, but I think cumbia sonidera is the best, because and it also well, I wouldn't say the best, but also cumbia sonidera, it evolves. Like every 10 years something different happens, while in Colombia and Peru, cumbia is not like there's not a lot of cumbia musicians or producers out there anymore. Unfortunately, cumbia in places like Colombia and Peru, it's died. It's not a thing anymore.
We just found that some of your tracks have been used in some TV series. How do you feel about this?
Um, I like it. It's flattering. I'm thankful. I always imagined, and I would always hope like my music to be used in TV or movies. Some of my music I try to make it like soundtrack-ish, like kind of like atmospheric, because those are the type of sounds that I like, so I hope my music gets used for movies or commercials or whatnot in the future.
So within your music, which do you prefer, heavy accordion or heavy bass?
Um, I I would prefer it to be heavy bass and then heavy accordion. I think the bass is super important, and yeah, bass is really important. You know, for me.
What are your thoughts on culture appropriation when it comes down to music?
I think that it's hard, you know, because I know that's like a conversation that people have been having in the last 7 years. I think if people do it with respect and people are really into it, you know, like it's not like something that's just, oh well, you know, I'm gonna start making cumbia today, and because everybody's playing it or everybody, you know, people, it's the thing that's selling, and then tomorrow I'm gonna be like whatever, you know, I'm gonna move on to making some other type of music, or if people don't educate themselves, I think it's really important to educate yourself of whatever music you're making, you know, and know the culture and know what happened before or whatnot, you know. And I think a lot of music producers make the mistake of not doing that, you know. Like they say, you know, to know where you're going, you gotta know your roots, you know. So when it comes to cultural appropriation, yeah, people that come into a culture like, let's say, cumbia, with no knowledge, no background knowledge, um, yeah, I don't think that's cool. You know, I think, you know, you got to educate yourself, and I think it'll show. It'll show on the producer. You know, you'll listen to. I've listened to producers that, you know, they're like, oh well, I'm gonna start making cumbia today, and you know that person just started making cumbia. They don't have that feeling. You know, that it's like somebody trying to make trap music or rap music, and they don't have that background. It's just not gonna sound cool. It's not gonna have that flavor, you know.
If you're able to explore like your music genre, like what else?
If I want to explore like a new genre, I've actually been listening to a lot of classical music and a lot of soundtrack music, and like yeah, I've been listening to a lot of stuff like that. And as I get older, I'm getting more interested in like classical music and or orchestral music, and maybe trying to do something with that later on in my life, you know.
Okay, so like I was saying earlier in the interview, we asked you about your tracks being in TV series,
Yeah,
in TV shows and whatnot.
yeah.
So with that being said, what do you see and hear your music playing in the next few years?
Um, I see my music. Okay, and then in the next few years, where I see my music at, I see myself putting out more records out. Hopefully, like my next goal is to be in Japan, like have my music out there and do stuff out there. Um, and yeah, I just hope that I could just put out more records out. That's my main interest, you know.
So within your music, of course, is there any cumbia group or artist in general that you would love to collaborate with in the future?
In the future, I would like to collaborate with Super Grupo Colombia. I would like to collaborate with Sonido Royal. Um, I would like to collaborate with people in my crew more. I have a crew called Cumbia Net, and I would like to be able to make tracks with them. You know.
We all know that like you're a record collector. Do you have a holy grail in your wish list?
Um, there's a few. There's a few records that I do want and that I haven't been able to come across. There's this one called Los Tabaqueros de Colombia. and it's from a Mexican cumbia group, and I've only seen that record once, and that's one of the records that I really want, you know.
Speak like you talked about hip hop for like a little bit.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite artist when it comes to hip hop?
When it comes to hip hop, my favorite artist, I haven't been asked this in a while, but I would have to say Freestyle Fellowship. They're from LA. It's an underground hip hop group from the '90s. Freestyle Fellowship to me were super important, and just what they would do, it was experimental, you know. So that's what I really liked about them. They were really good MCs. But yeah, that was my favorite artist growing up, and that's I was inspired to be at their level, you know, of always being original and keeping it real. But yeah, I would have to say Freestyle Fellowship.
But what advice would you give to like upcoming artists or people that is like coming into the cumbia culture?
Into the cumbia culture, I would say listen to different types of cumbia. Listen to a lot of it. Produce. You know, try to not try. Just be yourself. You know, be yourself. Don't if you're gonna copy somebody, cool. But at the end of the day, like just be yourself. You know, and I think as you're producing, that'll come out, and just be honest. Also, I think it's really important too to look at like other producers, other musicians that came before you, and just respect, you know. And I think that goes with any genre of music. You know, it's just listen to music, listen to see what was out there before, and just learn, educate yourself, you know, and yeah.
Thank you for your time, Turbo. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this conversation? Like, where may the listeners find your music and events?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you to all of you for the space. It's this is cool. It's good to see, you know, like these type of programs, you know. Also, yeah, if you want to look for my music on SoundCloud, Spotify. You could just Google my name; it'll come up. So yeah, Turbo Sonidero. But yeah, thanks a lot.
To our listeners, thank you for listening.
We are Sonic Vibes, and this has been La Masita with Turbo Sonidero. Remember, you have been listening to WLPN LP on 105.5 FM Lumpin Radio Chicago, broadcasted from the comfort of our homes. My name is Jaden, and that is Evelyn. Until next time, have a wonderful day.
Cool. Gracias.